This room at the National Press Club has seen moments of protest, moments of people yelling out or standing up with a banner, but I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like that. This was a banner that automatically unfurled right behind Pauline Hanson as soon as she got to the cost of living issues in the address that she prepared, and the banner, as people would have seen, pointed out that she opposed a pay rise for workers while pocketing a pay rise for herself. That sent the organisers here at the National Press Club into some furious reaction, given that it looked like this was something that had been staged. It clearly had not been by the officials at the National Press Club, which is why we saw them react so furiously. Jane Norman's on the board of the National Press Club. Jane, how does that sort of thing happen?
Well, that is the big question. I can confirm Maurice Riley, the Chief Executive, has already launched an internal investigation into how this happened. It's hugely embarrassing and it's really unfortunate, Spearsy, because this is, of course, Pauline Hanson's first ever address to the National Press Club. She's been a big feature of the political scene for decades now, but this is the first time she's come to this institution for, national debate. She often complains that she's treated differently, that One Nation is treated differently by the mainstream media, and so a stunt like today would really kind of feed into that perception. But I can confirm that there was absolutely no prior knowledge of this, and it is a really unfortunate and embarrassing event to take place and certainly changed the energy in the room. Senator Hanson continued on with her address while Maurice Riley and others behind her were tearing down this banner, I guess sort of keeping up with her whole motto today of a certain defiance as the One Nation leader. Yeah,
I think there were clearly moments of drama. That was the big one, but there was also the clash with Sarah Martin from The Guardian, who has been reporting on One Nation, asked a legitimate question about Pauline Hanson's daughter being employed by New South Wales One Nation Senator, but effectively basing herself in preparation for a campaign in a Tasmanian Senate race. She called her a trashy journalist. Sarah Martin, for the record, is anything but. She is a highly respected journalist, has worked in a range of outlets, but is now focused on the beat of covering One Nation. They were the moments of drama. There were plenty of moments of defiance. There were moments of policy comfort that you saw on migration. Pauline Hanson very comfortable on that front. But there were also moments of policy vagueness and policy confusion on things like, at the end there, the childcare pay question today, but on her approach to paid parental leave, the question at the start from Mark Riley around whether she really does stand for battlers. She suggested there's a need for an overhaul of industrial relations and suggested that the reason women aren't paid as much as men, they take time out of the workforce, left a bit of a question mark at least over her support for paid parental leave, tax policy as well. There, you can see, once we get to the detailed questions from journalists, where the gaps still are in the policy, the work that still needs to be done. Having said that, Jane, on migration in particular, no surprise, this is where Pauline Hanson devoted the first part of a very lengthy speech today. Yeah, it was. An average press club speech is about 60 minutes.
It's about 30 minutes rather, but this one went for nearly 50 minutes, and certainly a good chunk of that was about housing, which she directly links to migration, and some very, you describe as divisive rhetoric. Pauline Hanson describing immigration as a crisis, saying Australia is losing its identity and that Australia cannot be a multicultural country. She again went after what she describes as hate preachers, preaching radical Islam, saying that is a social cancer. So these are, this is really sort of ramping up the rhetoric on this and linking that directly to the housing debate. And we know that this is certainly an issue that she's having some success in, influencing the way the two major parties are approaching immigration, because she says voters are mad as hell, they're too afraid to talk about this, and that's why she is.
Yeah, and explicitly stating, yes, we've heard it before, but here in this forum at this speech that she's never addressed, had this platform before to say that she cannot support multiculturalism, that we should be a monocultural society.
This is a very, very big shift. For decades, Australia has had a very non-discriminatory multicultural policy, but she's signalling she wants to change that.
And this is where Labor thinks Pauline Hanson and One Nation will hit a demographic wall, if you like, electorally, that there are just too many seats that will not cop that sort of rhetoric. So we will see whether there is that sort of
And she actually pointed out some of the stats that we know about. Half of Australians are either born overseas or have a parent who's born overseas. She stated that a quarter of Australians speak either Arabic or Mandarin. These are Australians who vote as well. So in sort of pointing out these statistics, she might be appealing to some voting segments, but also alienating and isolating other parts of the electorate.
And also, we've heard before, but again, motion for the first time on this platform, abolish SBS, keep the ABC in regional areas but make it a subscription model in the cities. So you'd have to be paying to watch you and I right now, Jane. But look, this isn't something new that we've heard from Pauline Hanson, but to do it in front of the media, but also to take a more broad potshot at the media there for the pylons, as she put it, and keeping open the option of restricting access during an election campaign, I thought was interesting as well. Good thing that she's fronted up here at the National Press Club. That scrutiny is always a very good thing to see. Whoever the politician is, will we see that in an election campaign, or will it be a restricted access only election campaign to people who, she's happy with their reporting? That's what we get to see.
We're witnessing right now, if you look at the polls, a real rebalancing or a shifting the political landscape where it's no longer just a two-party system. So that's why we're asking these questions. It might still be 2 years out from the next election. That's a very long way to go. But if Pauline Hanson does maintain her polling, then she is a real player in terms of treating One Nation as we would Labor or the Coalition in terms of an election campaign. So that's kind of why these questions are being asked, but she's leaving that open.
Bottom line, will today help or hurt when it comes to the momentum clearly behind One Nation and the rise that we've seen in the polls over the last 6 months? Look, we will see. Always hard to make political predictions. A few clashes with the media, the protest banner unfurling. I don't think that will harm Pauline Hanson at all. I think focusing on migration has been a success for her to date. But, as I say, whether there is a limit to how far that takes her is what we are yet to see. I don't think there was anything today that will particularly hurt her amongst the base that's supporting her. But clearly there are some big policy questions, if people are thinking about who they want to be running government, that are unanswered, whether it's tax, industrial relations and foreign relations.
She's certainly got the numbers, but it's the nuance and the impact of her policies which we're still yet to really hear. What I will say is that Labor would be listening very carefully to the comments about industrial relations today. She's calling for an overhaul of IR. She wants to tip the balance further in favour of businesses, using her history as a small business owner to sort of bolster that call, but also interestingly not really backing in today's childcare worker rise. And so you can see that sort of fertile ground for the Labor Party to till as it sort of tries to portray Pauline Hanson as a politician who doesn't look after what they call the battlers or the working class.
So, Ros, no doubt we'll get plenty of reaction throughout the course of today from what we've heard here at the National Press Club in Canberra this afternoon.